Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. Hey, we're on time this week. Isn't that great? This is the show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to talk about how you can prepare and equip yourself to face your own worst case scenario and keep you and your family safe from harm. Now, we don't do politics or religion on this show, and so you're not going to hear crazy commentary or nutso fringe theories, conspiracy theories, nothing like that. Just reliable information that you can put to use in your life to keep you and your family safe. And we hope that you enjoy the show. And if you do, we would certainly appreciate it if you'd share this. If you're watching the show now and you maybe have a Facebook window open, go over to Facebook, tell people you're watching Training Talk and maybe give them a link. They'll put it up on Twitter. A little difficult to do on Instagram because it's not really a picture of it, but hey, you can screenshot me like that. And you can put that up on Instagram too. So do that. And we hope you enjoy the show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. And this is going to be a great show. We're going to be talking about kids and guns. We're going to be looking at the PDN Training Tour, which is in full swing right now, and some other stuff as well. So I said at the beginning that, hey, we're on time this week. If you remember our last show, we were a little late because of technical difficulties. And so tonight we got the technical stuff out of the way and we had a good chat before starting. We were talking about hunting and feral pigs and all kinds of things. It was great. Anyway, so my guest tonight is Barrett Kendrick of Barrett Training. Hey, Barrett, you there?
I am. How's it going?
Great. Hey, thanks for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy, gosh, all the time, and you've got a lot of teaching going on and all kinds of things, don't you?
Yeah, it's been a fantastic year. I think the training industry is kind of starting to adapt a little bit. But no, it's been a really good year. A lot of great stuff going on, and I do appreciate you having me on tonight.
Well, great. It's always nice to have you here. Now, down in your state, you've got shall issue concealed carry. Do you have so-called constitutional carry, or do they still require a license?
We do still require a license here in Louisiana. I try to stay pretty involved politically here in regards to gun laws and the changes and whatnot. I was just at the Capitol maybe 2 weeks ago to testify on different bills. We really think that we're still a few years out from constitutional carry here. Every time it ends up in committee, it doesn't get anywhere near the support it would need, even in committee, to make it out to go to a full House or Senate floor. So we're still a few years away, but hopefully in the future. I see that Oklahoma, there's a lot of talk going on out of that state right now. So they may end up being, the 14th or the 15th constitutional carry state. So as long as other states continue to rise, I think that greater chance that we'll see it here in Louisiana.
Now, are you seeing an increase in people wanting to get their carry permits?
I would say it's probably plateaued right now. It's concealed carry, at least here in Louisiana. It's one of those things that if they think that someone is going to take away the ability that they can get a permit, next Wednesday, then that's when they want to apply for it today. So the good news is that, with the plateau, the students that are getting it are more serious about it. They want to be there for the right reasons.
Great. And they have you to call on for their training needs, which is great because for those people who don't know, Barrett is a phenomenal instructor. And people in Louisiana are in good hands with you down there, which is great for them.
I appreciate that.
So we're going to get started. We're going to take a look, a couple of things before we get started on our discussion about kids and guns. And I got to tell you, Barrett, I'm really glad you're here tonight because I think that I don't have any kids, and I really don't know a lot about kids. I've got nieces and nephews, but I really don't know a lot about kids, like how old they are when they can do certain things. And I got to tell you, it came as a shock to me to find out that a 5-year-old cannot run a chainsaw. Did you know that?
I don't know. Maybe I've got a 4-year-old. My older one's 6 now. I feel like I should maybe get out in the backyard with a chainsaw and see
Yeah.
if that's really true.
Well, apparently, I'm told that a 5-year-old can't run a chainsaw. That just shocked me. So,
No, that's there's probably a little bit of truth in there.
okay. Anyway, let's talk about for a few minutes here before we start on our discussion. I'd like to bring everybody up to date on the Personal Defense Network annual training tour. Now, we do this every spring, and we have a phenomenal group of PDN contributors like Barrett who teach classes on the training tour. Now, one of the cool things about PDN contributors, unlike some other places, everybody here is an active instructor, whether they're teaching firearms or hand-to-hand, you know, empty hands, whether they're teaching non-lethal, whether they're teaching rifle or shotgun or pistol or medical skills. Everybody here at PDN is an active instructor. We're all out there teaching all the time. And so what we do is every year we set aside a block of time and say, okay, here in this period of time, we're going to do the nationwide training tour. Everybody goes out and teaches courses. And the great thing is that the sponsors of the training tour help to underwrite a lot of this so that we can get out and do training in some areas that might not otherwise get really good training. Now, if you're down in the New Orleans area where Barrett is, you can get great training with Barrett. That's great. You are in the minority because there are a lot of places in the country where people don't really get to see this very often. So it's a great opportunity to get out, get training, especially in a lot of parts of the country that might not otherwise get it. And so and we have a lot of sponsors that make that possible. So let's take a look at what's coming up on the training tour here. Now I'm going to go to screen share here, and let's hope that it doesn't crash everything because occasionally it does. All right, so I'm going to start the screen share here. It says starting screen share, and it says present to everyone, and hopefully everybody can see that there. Can you see that, Barrett?
I can.
Okay, cool. So let's take a look at, first of all, I want to call your attention to all of our great sponsors here. Of course, Personal Defense Network, Crossbreed Holsters, our good friends at Crossbreed. I think that they have sponsored every single training tour we've done now. They're just a great group of people down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you know Carol and everybody else down there, right?
Yes.
Just a great group. Just a great group of people. I really love them. Viridian Weapon Technologies, folks make lasers, and they've got a very, very cool laser that goes on at the end again that includes a video camera now, which is awesome. USCCA, the United States Concealed Carry Association, Angel Fire Ammunition, Springfield Armory USA, CERT Pistols, 511 Apparel. They've been a really good sponsor for us. Patriot Ordnance Factory, and I think they may be new this year. Good company, makes some really great guns. Mission First Tactical, Holosun, and I'm not sure what that is.
That is Cryptek.
Okay, thank you. Figures I can't tell what it is, right? And of course, the folks at Holosun who make some really, really great optics. So they're sponsoring this whole thing too. And if it weren't for them, we couldn't do this. It's very expensive to take training out to all kinds of areas in the country. And so when you're thinking about products to buy or services, if you would please consider our sponsors first. They've really gone out of their way, especially this year, to sponsor the training tour. So what's coming up in the next couple of weeks? Well, let's see here. In the next couple of weeks, Rob Pincus just got done teaching, but in the next couple of weeks, Caleb Causey is going to be in Fort Worth, Texas, teaching major bleeding control. And we're just huge fans here at Personal Defense Network of learning how to deal with major trauma like bleeding, because that's people die from that, not just from gunshot wounds, not just from knife wounds, but industrial accidents, farm accidents, chainsaws. And in fact, I live in timber country here. Every once in a while, somebody gets severely cut with a chainsaw, and people do occasionally die from that. So knowing how to control major bleeding is important. I mean, kids fall through plate glass windows. That's, things happen. You should know how to control major bleeding. If you're anywhere near Fort Worth, Caleb Causey is the guy to take that from. Also, the 12th and 13th, that's on the 11th, coming up here in about a week. Also, the 12th and 13th, again, coming up in about a week. Yours truly will be in Whitewright, Texas, teaching Threat Center Revolver. This is my first time in Texas. Rob Pincus is going to be in Walbridge, Ohio, teaching intuitive defensive shooting and two-person armed defense. The two-person armed defense course is really cool. And that's one that has gotten really popular lately. So if you and your spouse carry weapons, knowing how to use them in concert when you're together is probably a good idea. Saline, Michigan, Rob Pincus is going to pop up there and do another fundamentals of intuitive defensive shooting. In Crescent, Texas, I don't know where Crescent is, but I didn't know where Whitewright was either until I put a class there. They're good. Omari Broussard and Aaron Israel, and you've seen Aaron on the show before, they're going to get together and do a 2-day intuitive defensive shooting course. In Searcy, excuse me, Arkansas, or no, that's Arkansas. In our PDN contributor, and you've seen him on the show before. The one, the only Alessandro Padovani is going to be teaching intuitive defensive shooting there. Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, Mike Seeklander is going to be doing his competition handgun speed and accuracy skills. If you want to shoot competition, go take a class from Mike. He's the guy. And then Rockford, Michigan, Rob Pincus is still going to be there on the 19th and 20th teaching intuitive defensive shooting. And also on the 19th and 20th in Adler, Montana. And Don Edwards is one of our new contributors, teaching a designated marksman course. I don't know, Barrett, do you know anything about this course? Because I don't.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do know Don Edwards, solid instructor, solid guy.
Okay.
So I know that what he'll be putting out will be solid material, but I do not know about the course, no, sir.
Okay, great. Let's face it, if they're teaching on the training tour, you can bet that they've been vetted and checked out. And so designated marksman, that might be kind of a fun course.
No, absolutely would. And
yeah.
Montana's probably a great place to do it.
Yeah, lots of wide open space in Montana. Lots of room in this mall. Who can tell me what movie that's from? Houston, Texas, also on the 19th and 20th. Cecil Birch, our friend Cecil Birch, and you've seen Cecil on the show a number of times. One of my favorite people, is going to be teaching immediate action jiu-jitsu and immediate action pugilism, which is punching people. Which I don't know about you, but that sounds like a fun course to me. And also in Searcy on the 19th and 20th, Alessandro is going to stay there and teach advanced pistol handling. And then still in Crescent, Texas on the 20th, Omari and Aaron Israel are going to be teaching a 1-day advanced pistol handling course, which is a good course. If you've gotten, your basic shooting skills down, you've taken like intuitive defensive shooting or combat focused shooting, something like that. Advanced pistol handling is a good course to take. And you teach that too, don't you?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, I thought you did. And then rounding up on the 20th, Pryor Creek, Oklahoma, Mike Seeklander is going to be teaching competition handgun dynamic movement skills. If you're shooting IDPA or USPSA, movement is everything, and learning how to do it correctly and efficiently is good. And again, Mike is the guy to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more here. Sacramento, California, on the 25th and 26th, Mike Seeklander is going to be there teaching another competition handgun course. And then on the 26th and 27th in Bonfield, Illinois. Rob Pincus is going to be there teaching his courses. Sacramento, California on the 27th. Mike Seeklander, more competition movement courses. And rounding out the month of May in Peoria, Illinois, Rob Pincus, intuitive defensive shooting. So lots of stuff coming up in Illinois this year. Wow. Okay. Bunch of stuff.
And I'll be back. I was in Illinois in November. I'll be back in June, maybe June or July there for an instructor development class. And then I'll be back in September again for defensive handgun and rifle. There's a lot of people there that they really have a solid interest in firearms training, and we're there to provide the good stuff for them.
Wow, boy, lots of stuff going on in Illinois. Who would have thought? I don't know, even a decade ago, that we'd see lots and lots of courses like this in Illinois.
That's right. I mean, they've only had concealed carry in regards to being able to easily, or being able to even obtain a permit to be able to do it, right? For just a few years now.
Just a couple of years
through that, it's just really taken off for them.
So it's if you told me 10 years ago that would be happening, I would have said, no, you're nuts. It's not going to happen in Illinois. All right, so let's talk about kids and guns, Barrett.
One of my favorite topics.
You wrote an interesting article it's been a while back, called Raising Children in a World of Guns. And that's what prompted me to have you on. It's an old article, but a good one, and everybody should go read that on PDN. It's a good article. And I guess there are basically two areas that I want to talk about. And the first one is we deal with kids in houses that have guns. How do we deal with that? And the other is, at what point should they be exposed to firearms in terms of shooting them themselves? So they're kind of two different topics. But I want to start with raising kids in a home that has firearms. We see a lot of, every year we see, of course, we all know the tragic accidents that happen. We don't like to see it. We talk to people about storage and that kind of thing to keep them safe from kids. But Barrett, what about from the other side of it? When do you start teaching kids about firearms, not necessarily shooting them, but living around them? Where do you start?
Absolutely. So, that's a question I get a lot, is that when do I start, educating my kids on firearms? And I can tell you when I did it, so to give you my background with kids, I have two of them. So that's my experience really with kids. I have two wild boys that are currently ages 4 and 6, going on pretty much 7, but 4 and 6 years old. I started talking about firearms and education with them. Both of them were roughly about 2.5 years old. Now, not every parent is going to start teaching their guns at teaching their kids about firearms at 2.5 years old. However, the key factor with me, that's when they started asking the questions. That's when they noticed the firearms. That's when they noticed that I carry a gun. That's when they noticed that I was getting stuff in and out of the gun safes, and that's when they started asking the questions about it. And so that's, I kind of jumped on that opportunity. I had already, learned a lesson a little bit earlier in life with something else, just another dangerous object in the house. And I think I mentioned that in the article that you were referencing. But roughly about the age of 2, maybe a little bit younger than that, my older child at the time, wanted to really start helping us get things like the dishes out of the dishwasher. Wanted to be able to hand me a cup and, cut a cup away. And well, I'm a new parent. I really didn't have a lot of experience around kids because that was my only one at the time. And so, I'm not the helicopter parent that goes and wants to take care of everything and pads every corner in the house. However, I did recognize that there's steak knives in the dishwasher and there's other knives in the dishwasher, and I can't just have a 2-year-old grabbing stuff out of the dishwasher like that. So the way that I did that, all right, well, let me start talking to my child, about about knives and how, knives can cause bobos and knives can hurt you, and that's for mommy and daddy. And he understood that. A 2-year-old's been hurt, right? A 2-year-old has a limited vocabulary. And he would walk past the knives. I'd get them out of the dishwasher and put them away, and then allow him to, really help me get the bowls and the cups and all the other miscellaneous stuff out on the forks, right? But at the time, he would walk past a knife, or we'd have one on the table, and he'd say, "Knife Bobo," or "Knife Mommy Daddy." And, this went on for probably, it was a long time. It was it was maybe 4 days that this went on. And on day 4 or 5, he grabs like the biggest knife out of the dishwasher and holds it up in the air and yells out, "Knife Bobo!" And I'm like, whoa, that was, I failed, right? My plan of action was, tell him that it can hurt him and don't let him get near it. And literally my plan lasted 4 or 5 days. I'm like, all right, well, that doesn't work. So that's kind of sticking in the back of my mind. The first time my, then 2.5-year-old starts asking a question about a firearm. Well, I'm not 6 months out from the previous story. So let me go about this a little bit differently. Since last time I said it can hurt you, don't go near it. Those for adults only, and that only lasted 5 days. What can I do that makes it my children a little bit more successful in their safety and whatnot? So that's when I started really educating them more. That's when I started having the conversations about firearms with them.
Wow. I'm imagining this kid holding this knife up, It's great.
And it's like, what do? You don't want to yell at a child, at a 2-year-old holding a knife, because then it's like, what's going to happen to the knife? They're going to drop it in their foot, throw it at your foot. It's like,
Oh, man. So at what age did they start noticing that guns are around? In other words, they take notice of them in their environment. This happens, or 2-ish, obviously right around there.
Yeah, that's where it happened with myself. I'm a full-time firearms instructor, right? So that's a constant part of our lives, that they either see me, taking, my clothes off at night or shirt off at night and see the exposing the firearm and putting that away in the safe, or, they see me getting stuff out of a safe to go teach a course for student guns. So that's when they started asking the questions, and I knew that it was important that I started teaching them about that in a serious way. Now, the model that most people were raised on, and is still very popular today, is if you come across a firearm, you teach your kids, don't go near it, don't touch it, and go find an adult and tell them about it. And, that program gets taught in a lot of households. The way that I kind of look at that, and I'm looking around, I don't really have anything, trying to find a bag or something, but even if it's a box or something, right? If I've got this bag right here, and if I stick you in a room with this bag, it clearly has stuff in there, but we don't know what's in there, right? So here's just a bag. If I stick this in a room and kind of tell you, look, this is a very important bag, you're not allowed to open it. I can't have you looking at the contents. That's not for you. That's for somebody else. But I just want you to take this bag, and I want you to hold this bag for me. And, again, don't open it. Just hold it. Keep it safe for me. And when somebody else comes in the room, I want you to actually hand the bag off to them and hand them the bag and instruct them in the same way, that they're not allowed to open it. It's too important. It's not for them. It's for someone else. All they have to do is just hold that and keep it safe until I come back and grab it. If I'm doing that, everybody wants to know what's in the bag, right? That all of a sudden, before I drew somebody's attention to it, it was just a bag sitting there on the table. But now, since I'm talking about it, since I'm telling you not to open it, now all of a sudden, whoever's watching tonight is wanting to know what's in the blue bag.
I want to know what's in it right now. I'm going,
right. So right, what's in the blue bag. And I think that's the model that most people use inside the house, is that, guns are dangerous, is they're not for the kids. Those are for mommy and daddy only. Don't go near those. Don't touch them. That's for adults. They're going to hurt you. And all we're doing is dangling the bag in front of their face, telling them not to open it. It's human nature.
I never thought of it in those. Like I said, I don't have kids. I never thought of it in those terms because you're right. That's sort of the standard model for doing this. So what do you do instead? I mean, you're dealing with 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old. It's not like they have a lot of cognition yet. So how do you deal with it with a 2.5, 3-year-old?
Absolutely. And none of this. This didn't happen in an afternoon. This is a process, right?
Right.
This is a process over time. But I started, that first conversation, just talking about firearms and talking about how they're used for different things in life, whether it's gathering food or fun or dealing with stuff like that, right? Just having basic conversations, but talking about how they are dangerous, and really at a certain point, making sure I'm not distracted. Making sure they're not distracted as much as they can't be distracted, right? They're still little kids. But really, getting a firearm out, making sure it's unloaded, having somebody verify that it's unloaded, and really sitting down and then teaching them about the gun and allowing them to hold it and explore their curiosities and teach them about the safety rules that surround that, about where it's pointing and being aware of that, and where they're keeping their finger and the dangers that surround all of that. And really just teaching them about it, but allowing them to explore their curiosities. And then telling them, hey, if you see a gun, you can't just go touch a gun. That's dangerous. But if you want to, all you have to do is come ask me. If you see a gun, if I screw up, because I'm human, right? I try to put my kids' safety clearly above my firearm. And anytime that that gun is out of my control, off of my body, I want to make sure that I've got some sort of layer of security that is realistically keeping them from being able to handle that firearm. But at the end of the day, I'm human. I could screw up, or it doesn't even matter if I have firearms in the house. The studies show that inside of this country, there's about a 50% chance that a home has a firearm in it or somewhere on the property. So in 50% of the houses my kids up in life, whether it's my relatives or their friends, whether it's right now or later on in life, there's a 50% chance that there's a firearm somewhere on that property. So I've got to set my kids up for success. But I think in doing that, it's about taking away that curiosity. So allowing them to handle the firearm in a very controlled setting, where I'm making them that promise. If you want to handle my guns, look, anytime you want to handle my guns, all you have to do is ask me and we'll do it. And again, I'm going to hold that promise. I'm going to live up to it. I'm going to make sure that anytime that the guns are coming out, that I am not distracted, that I'm setting away time to be able to do it, verifying that those firearms are unloaded and allowing them to explore their curiosities. And look, when I told a 2.5-year-old that they can handle my guns anytime they want, that's a daily occurrence. That's every single day. That's how curious they are about it. That's every single day, for a week or two that they're wanting to handle them. And then it starts to trickle off a little bit. And then it's like, well, why would I want to handle that one? I've handled that one 20 times. And all of a sudden, maybe something new comes in the house or out of the safe. And then that's when they want to ask about it. But fast forward, here now they're 4 and 6 years old. It is rare that they want to handle one of my firearms because it's just another object in the house. They've done it before. They're not curious about it. They have been educated on it. I've already taken both of the boys out shooting multiple times. They've had experiences on the range, and they don't have that curiosity to where now when I tell them, if they're at a friend's house and all of a sudden they discover a firearm or a gun comes out, now all of a sudden my plan is going to be a little bit more successful because now they've been educated on it and they don't have that curiosity, that mysterious shield around that. There was a website, not a website. It was a show a few years ago that if you're a parent, if you have firearms, you really ought to probably go watch this show. But it was 2020 put it out, and it was called, My Kids Would Never Do This or Never Do That or something along those lines. It was a series of about 6 different episodes, but one of the episodes specifically was on firearms and education. And, basically, they brought somebody in to teach them that program of stop, don't touch it, leave the area, go find an adult. And I don't remember all the ages. I don't remember all the scenarios that they put the kids in, but basically they educated the kids. And then, 2 or 3 days later, so we're not talking about a year later, we're talking about 2 or 3 days later, they put these different age kids into different settings where they did not realize that they were being filmed. And, somewhere inside of what they were doing, somebody was going to discover a firearm. And they were real guns. They had been made, they had been taking the firing pins out of them for safety concerns and whatnot, but they were real firearms. And, I remember the ones that really stick out of my head. They had a group of, I think it was 2 boys, 2 girls, and they were in a social setting where they were helping somebody fill gift baskets. There was only one adult there. Their parents weren't there. The moms were behind the screen, being able to watch all of this, but they didn't know any of that. They were filling gift baskets. That's it. And so the kids were sitting there filling the gift baskets, and all of a sudden, the one adult that was there says, "Oh, y'all did a fantastic job. Look, there's a snack table over there. Go to enjoy some snacks and refreshments. I've got to go handle something, but I'll be back in a few minutes." And so the only adult disappeared. So you've got little kids sitting there having little kid conversations around the table. And then, eventually somebody moves a bag of chips or something, and there's the gun sitting there. And, how do you think that the children handle that? No, they were just taught, these are about 8 to 10-year-olds. They were just taught literally 2 to 3 days before that that's dangerous. Don't go near it. And, the large majority of them were picking it up. They're acting like they're shooting it. They're pointing it at their friends. But the one that really sticks out to me that I think is the most important one is that, it was 4 of them. And he's the one that when the gun was displayed, he sat there and said, "Remember the training, remember the training." And, he went back and defaulted to the training that was too dangerous. Don't go near it. So they're going to find an adult, right? They're actually doing the plan the way it was supposed to be done. The mom's behind the scenes. She's so happy her son saved the lives of these other kids. Now, 3 of them leave to go find the adult, but the one that sat there and said, "Remember the training, remember the training," that one stayed behind. And he stayed behind, and he was watching the gun to make sure nobody touched it. Well, now everybody's gone. There's no peers, there's no siblings, there's no adults, all by himself. Even though when he had his peers around, he sat there and said, "Remember the training," he was also the one that picked it up while everybody else was gone. And just in his face, you could see that it was just mesmerized to be able to hold that object. And I think that, to me, that really highlights the power of curiosity. And I think if you stick to a model of that's dangerous, don't go near it, and you end it right there, I think that's all we do is just make kids curious about it. And that's human nature. As an adult, we have a lot more self-control than a 5-year-old has. A 5-year-old doesn't have that kind of self-control. They give in to their curiosity. And so I think that, the plan that, we need to have to work with my own kids or other people in my lives needs to actually set them up for success and not failure.
For those who are interested, I looked this up. For those who are interested, the video is on YouTube. If you search YouTube for Dateline, "My Kid Would Never Do That, Gun Safety," and it's on there. It's looks like about a 38-minute video, and it's available for anybody who wants to watch. So I'm going to watch it after the show tonight because I have not seen that. What you're really talking about is removing the novelty of it, aren't you? I mean, that's really it. And admittedly, I grew up in a different time and in a different place, but for us growing up on the farm, we had a rifle and a couple of rifles, a shotgun and a pistol. Actually a 22 Ruger Bearcat revolver, actually, very nice little gun. But these guns people didn't have gun safes at the time. So these things were just kept out openly, but they were a tool that we used on the farm. And so I associated the guns with work, right? and what kid wants to do work? I mean, but again, the same thing. It removes the novelty. It's just something in the environment that I'm going to stay away from because it represents work. But that brings up a point, and I think we should probably touch on this about storage is an important part of this. Just because we didn't have a gun safe when I was growing up doesn't mean that that's a safe thing to do now, is it?
Yeah, that's right. I had a student a few years ago that he was somewhere in one of my classes, but he was sitting there telling me, I think it was a concealed carry permit class, but he was sitting there telling me that they were sitting around a Thanksgiving table. And this has probably been 2.5 years ago, but they're sitting around a Thanksgiving table, and he was 40 years old at the time. And he told his dad, he said, "Dad, you remember that revolver you used to have?" And his dad's like, yeah, I remember that. And he's like, well, I just wanted you to know, I used to play with it all the time. He used to get it out and play, with his dad's revolver. Now, here's the thing. His dad had it. He had it out of the way. He had it completely hidden. He didn't realize that his son even was aware of the fact that the revolver existed. But yet, back in his youth, he's sitting there playing with that firearm. And so, I had guns in the house growing up. I was shooting from a very young age, probably, 5 years old. I was shooting firearms. And that was a constant thing. We were hunting and recreational shooting and whatnot. So it was constantly in my life. Well, we had a rule in the house that I wasn't allowed to handle firearms without permission. I was raised around guns, but I wasn't allowed to handle them without permission. And we didn't put a gun safe in the house until probably 1990 or so. I was roughly 11, maybe 12 years old. I was given a key to the gun safe at the time as well. So it's kind of, my dad kind of looked at it like that, right? We weren't putting the guns in a safe to prevent me from handling them. We were putting the firearm safe there because we had other people coming into the house. And even though I was not supposed to handle those firearms without permission, there were many times that I handled those guns without permission. There were times that I was shooting the firearms without permission. Looking back, it was about as cautious as it could be because of the way that I was raised to be safe with firearms from a very early age. I've had a tremendous amount of respect for them, always growing up. So I think that what I was doing was about as safe as it could be done. However, I was still doing it. So, since that person kind of highlighted in that class, and I knew that that was my experience as well, I started asking questions. Anytime that I was talking about firearm safety and storage and staging and whatnot, I started asking my students, let me ask you this. Did you have access to a gun in the home growing up? Were you allowed to handle those without permission? So if you weren't allowed to handle them without permission, but yet you still have access to them, were there any times that you handled that gun without permission anyway? And I'm making up numbers here, but I always tell students it's probably half of the people that I've asked that question that weren't supposed to be handling firearms were still handling those firearms. So that's like ding, ding, ding. If I did it, if other people are doing it, if half of my students that I talk about that had access to it are doing it, that tells me right there that if you've got somebody in your life that you don't trust with firearms because they have not been trained or because they just simply can't be trusted, then you've got to make sure that you're doing something realistically to prevent access. Not just hiding it, not just putting it out of reach. I learned very early on that, that probably 3-year-olds at the time, they can get to any level of your home because kids, I always tell people that, we try to keep kids in a box that they're not capable of being an adult, doing adult things, but day to day, life is a puzzle to a child. And that's how they live life, is they're constantly trying to figure out and solve the puzzles. So they think about things that we don't think about. You don't have a 60-year-old that, climbs the shelves in a closet like a 3-year-old will, but the 3-year-old will snap right up there pretty quickly. The 3-year-old will move stuff around to be able to climb up to get it higher up. And, that's the unfortunate thing. And I always like to talk about real stories in my classes. And anytime I'm talking about, preventing access to unauthorized individuals. And, the reality is that there's plenty of examples that I can come up with from year to year where you have had kids that have hurt themselves or somebody else unintentionally, with guns. Now, statistically, If you're talking strictly about unintentional injuries or deaths, they are very low compared to other unintentional injuries or deaths. Meaning, I think on a higher number on an annual basis, we see about 600 to 650 deaths. And that's not just kids. This is adults and all. About 650 deaths every single year from an unintentional firearm injury or death, excuse me. So the large majority of those we know are absolutely 100% preventable as well. But when you compare that to something, in fact, I pulled it up a second ago just to see what the number. But I think it was about 3,500 unintentional drownings every year. And that actually does not include anything boating related. So they put boating related in a completely different category. And when I looked into it a few years ago, of that 3,500 on an annual basis, the large majority of those are backyard swimming pools, and the large majority of those are going to be kids as well. So it's, when you compare it to something like that, it's actually a lot lower. When you compare it to falls, it's a tremendous amount lower, but it's still preventable. And if it's preventable, and it's preventable very easily, I'm a parent. I love my kids to death. I need to do what needs to be done to make sure that I'm preventing access to them in a realistic way. And hiding something, hoping they don't find it, that's not a plan. Putting something out of reach only works for a 3-month-old or a 6-month-old. It doesn't work for a child that's capable of standing up. So we've got to be realistic. And I get it. There's a difference between wanting to put something behind lock and key that is designed for theft prevention compared to, I still want access to my firearm in an efficient manner. But we have a lot of different options to be able to stage guns in a secured fashion where we can still quickly get our hands on them and make them ready for use in the context of defensive use.
I agree. There's just no reason not to these days. When you were talking about that, one of the things that I like to tell people is, when you were 3, 4, 5 years old, you knew where all the Christmas presents were hidden, right? And what they were. And everybody nods their head. Well, yeah, of course. Well, they're going to know where your gun is too. If they can find the Christmas presents, they can find your gun. So hiding.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, they may be looking for the Christmas presents, and that's how they find the gun.
Yep, exactly.
It's not that they're even aware the firearm exists. And I see that with parents is that, I keep it a complete secret. My kids don't know about it. Well, they need to know about it. They need to know about the dangers around it.
So what about I want to touch on this for just a second. What about the kids' friends who come into the house? Do you tell your kids to, we don't talk about the fact that we've got guns, or how do you deal with that?
Again, that comes in conversations. That comes through education. From early on, when I first started talking about the firearms, that was also part of it. That's not something we talk about with other people, especially since, I carry a gun, right? As I carry a gun from day to day, I can't have, a 4-year-old saying, Dad, when he's sitting on my lap in a public setting, Dad, your gun's sticking to my back or something like that, right? I can't have stuff like that. So it's you want to make sure that, again, that you're talking about it and telling them that that's not something that we talk about with other people for many reasons. That's not something we talk about with other people. And there's some times in there. There's a period in there. Like I said earlier, it doesn't happen in a day. It's a process. There's a period in there where that's a hard, for a small child, but it does end up taking place. And, my kids, that's not something that they're talking about with other people. But it's even in talking about other friends, though. It's what I do as a parent may be different than what other parents do as well, because we all make our own decisions. And I see parents that are deathly afraid of their child, pointing toy guns at people and acting like it's a real gun, but a real gun is different than a fake gun, right? They're toys. And whether or not the parent wants them to point them at other people, that kind of stuff ends up happening in any way. So, and to talk about that, the reason why I really want to highlight it is if your kids, have guns, toy guns, Nerf guns, especially if they're running around shooting people with them, Yeah, you also should be teaching them about real firearms because of the difference between the two. So that is also another conversation. And that your child knows, his own toy guns. He's going to know those firearms, and she's going to know those firearms. So anyone that is not that one, just assume it is real. If it's something you want to handle, then make sure you come and ask me first.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that one of the, I think, discussion points or controversial points sometimes comes up about the idea, well, do we as gun owners let our kids have guns or not have guns, or toy guns, right? And I always had toy guns growing up, and I knew the difference between my toy gun and the real gun. In fact, I was surprised the first time. Keep in mind, I'm old. Okay. So back when I was a kid, we had, little cap guns that were like Colt Peacemaker revolvers. We had the holster, the Western holster and everything. Right. And I knew my little cap gun, and I was always surprised the first time I picked up a real gun, how heavy it was. So I instantly knew the difference that, oh, well, this is not the same thing. So this whole thing about kids and guns, obviously you've come down on one side of it. But there are those people out there who just, well, I don't want my kid to have any toy gun because he might confuse it with a real gun. That's not really a concern, is it?
I don't think it is. Not as long as we're teaching kids that there are real guns and they're toy guns. And again, we come back to the education side of it. Acting like real firearms don't exist in 50% of the properties in the United States is not setting your child up for success. Whether or not a parent wants to allow real guns or toy guns in their home, that's up to them. But either way, they should be teaching them about real firearms and educating them on them in a way that sets them up for success, just like we should be teaching our kids about the sexual predators that live in our neighborhoods and the surrounding areas. Is that you can't hide it from them because it's there. And that doesn't set them up for success. We just need to teach them about it. If I was a woodworker and I worked with table saws all day long, wouldn't I want to teach my 5-year-old about the table saw and the dangers that surround it and how to use it safely?
Learning how to use a chainsaw safely, right? Oh. Seriously, I mean, I grew up in the country, so we had chainsaws too and table saws, and we had all the dangerous stuff on our farm. So let's kind of jump to the other part of the question, which is, when do you teach kids to shoot and allow them to shoot a real gun?
Sure. Mine were 3. But I recognize that is not going to happen in every single household. So it's not that I say at 3 years old they need to be out shooting. I will say that a 3-year-old shooting, because of cognition and awareness and whatnot, that is not going to be near far along as a 4-year-old would be on the gun range. Just they get it a whole lot more at 4 and 5 than they do at 3 years old. Now, for the experience of it, for the getting rid of that curiosity, I don't think it's the wrong thing to have them out there on the range at 3, but they do get it a whole lot more at a little bit older. There's just huge leaps that take place there. But I think mine one was just under 3 and one was just over 3 when I got them out to the range to take them shooting. But it's when you can get rid of distractions. It's when you can do it in a way that sets the child up for success. Don't do it like somebody did me one time and take me out to the woods and hand me a sawed off 12 gauge and say, go, kind of thing, and set me up for failure. I get it, experiential learning, right? But that's kind of the wrong way to do it. We want to set our kids up for success. So I think getting guns that are appropriate for that kind of age, get them out there, allowing them to enjoy it. But really, the goal that I see it is you're trying to teach them how to handle firearms safely and make sure that they're not curious about them. So you got to make sure that your actions on the range are to help you get to your goal.
When you said that, I flash back to how my dad taught me to swim. He threw me in the pond, and if I didn't drown, I was a success, right? And so to this day, I can't swim very well. But I didn't drown. And so I just flashing back to this. Oh man, that's a mean thing to do. We can laugh now. Wow, 3 years old. I'm sure there's some people out there just going,
right. And like I said, I get it. You know, I'm not, it's not every 3-year-old needs to go to the range. It's that was appropriate for my kids at the time because of what was already taking place. You know, that wasn't the beginning. You know, that was already inside of that process of educating my kids with guns. And that was the next step, was getting them out there.
You know, my best friend, although I don't think he was allowing his kids to shoot at 3, certainly had his kids out on the range at 2 and 3 years old with him, so that they could see what happens. Of course, they've got their own little hearing protection, their own little eyeglasses and everything. I've got pictures of them. They're cute. But yeah, and I think part of the idea was, as you said, you educate them so that they get, so that the novelty, I think, gets removed, which is the word I'm looking for. The novelty is removed. And so I don't think I shot my, let's see, I shot my first gun probably when I was about 5 or 6. But then again, I was a small kid, and but like I said, the guns were out in the open the entire time, so it's not like I didn't have access to them. That's interesting. Wow. Do your kids, your older kid now, but do your kids in general enjoy shooting? Are they interested in going to the range, or is it just not exciting for them now?
No, they absolutely love it. You know, I wish we were out there on a weekly basis. We're not, but they absolutely love shooting. I keep them to suppress 22s. You know, that's a huge argument for a legitimate use for a suppressor, is that I can't hear very well. I was raised to be very safe with firearms, but I don't remember wearing hearing protection until I was, 20 years old or so. It wasn't a part of my life. And now, teaching a lot of students at many different ranges and indoor ranges and outdoor ranges, I don't hear as good as I used to be. So I try to protect my ears extremely well now. And so I make sure that I protect their ears, and the suppressor helps with that. But no, they absolutely love it. Shooting the 22s, getting out there, like during Halloween, we'll go out there and shoot pumpkins, and I'll set up targets and use the little bolt action 22s, or, even the Ruger 1022, little semi-automatic, works very well. I've got a aftermarket stock to make the length of pull appropriate for them. To be able to make allow them to enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't think anybody invented hearing protection when I was a kid. I don't think it even existed. And to this day, it's like I can't hear anything. I want to before we finish up here, I want to take a quick break, and talk just a minute about premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. Do you mind if we do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I know you know all about this, but a lot of people aren't aware that we have 2 sides to Personal Defense Network. There's the public side that everybody sees, and the side where you're watching this podcast webcast. But then we also have another side to Personal Defense Network, and that's the membership side. And we have, oh gosh, just a freaking ton of videos on the membership side here at Personal Defense Network, full length DVD length videos. Yeah, I know DVDs are going away, but we've got DVD length videos on all kinds of topics, and we're always adding more on the premium side here at Personal Defense Network. A lot of our contributors have full length videos on the premium side. Cecil Birch was here a couple of weeks ago, a couple episodes ago. He's done several full-length videos that we have on the premium side, membership side here at Personal Defense Network. So just an incredible amount of full-length material from vetted instructors, great material. We've got video collections on very specific topics where you can get a lot of different viewpoints in. Just incredible amounts of stuff. And now we've got distance learning. We've got online courses available too. So how do you get access to this? Well, you sign up for premium membership, and there are links all over the site. If you're watching this on the PDN website, there are links all over just about every page to sign up for premium membership. Now, I've got a deal for you. If you want to sign up for premium membership, which it went up in price. It used to be like $37.95 or $39.95. I think it's actually gone up now. But we've got a deal for you because you're watching the show. You can get an incredible discount on your first year of premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. You can get it for only $10. Well, how do you get this, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. When you sign up for premium membership, you fill in all the stuff, you fill in your payment information. There's a little box there. It says coupon code or discount code. I can't remember which, but it says something like that. It's obvious. You'll see it on checkout. And all you have to do is put in this code, Grant10, all one word, Grant, the number 1, the number 0, all one word, Grant10. Put that in, and you'll get the price will magically change to $10, and that will cover your first year of premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. You'll have access to everything. This is not metered, restricted, any access. That it's premium membership here at Personal Defense Network for $10 for your first year. So that code again, Grant10, Grant, the number 1, the number 0, all one word. Put that in, and you'll get your first year of premium membership here at Personal Defense Network for only $10. We don't invest in fancy graphics, folks. We pass the savings on to you. All right, Barrett. Thanks so much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. It's a great conversation. Like I said, I don't have kids. I don't know this stuff. But
I love it. I love getting kids involved with firearms. I literally could probably sit here and talk the next 5 hours on this topic and not get bored with it or not run out of material to talk about.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's have you on here again soon. We'll talk about teaching kids to shoot. How about that? Are you still there?
Yes, you kind of broke up there.
Okay.
I think you said we'll talk about teaching them how to shoot.
Yeah, we'll have you on again here soon. We'll talk about teaching kids to shoot. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, where you are, and all that kind of stuff.
Probably the easiest method is going to be bearcotraining.com, B as in boy, EARCO training.com. Of course, I'm on Instagram under Barrett Training, also on Facebook as well, and Twitter and YouTube and all that other good stuff. Got some courses coming up here, I think in May. Yeah, later on 19th and 20th in New Orleans if you're in this area. If not, hope to see you on the road.
All right. And folks, if you're anywhere down in the New Orleans area, even if you have to drive, Barrett's classes are worth driving for. Okay. Just drive in there. New Orleans is a great place. You'll have a good time and get great training too. So Barrett, thanks so much for being on. And we'll have you on again soon. And folks, first of all, again, check out all the great classes on our Personal Defense Network training tour. I'm going to plug my book here, my new book. This just came out, Protecting Your Homestead, Using a Rifle to Defend Life on Your Property. That's me. Yes. And look, see, you can even see me on the back cover. This is out. It's the last time I checked, it was still #1 in the security category on Amazon. It's done incredibly well. Lots of great reviews. So it's available, of course, in paperback. I'm in logging country. We like paper. It's available in paperback, of course, all the the popular electronic formats, Kindle and iBooks. So you can get it on Amazon and at the iBook store. So check that out. Our next show is going to be a little bit off of schedule. Oh yeah, he's got the blue thing again. He's teasing me with that. Our next show is going to be a little off schedule. As you know, usually we do our shows the first and third Thursdays of the month. Well, it's going to be the fourth Thursday of the month this time to accommodate the PDN Training Tour schedule. So our next show will actually be the 24th Thursday, the 24th of this month, May 24th. Of course, at the normal time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. where Barrett is.
Barrett time.
Yeah. So be sure and check that out. So on the 24th, which is a couple of weeks away, it is a little bit off schedule. So if you're used to the first and third Thursdays, you'll have to kind of, make an arrangement for that. But on the 24th, the fourth Thursday this month. So we'll see you then. And Barrett, thanks again for being on the show. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. Thanks, everybody. If y'all have questions, drop in the comments below.
All right, great. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.